Hi, welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. Join us for a deep dive into humane leadership tailored for today's fast-paced business world. Don't miss out our weekly YouTube live sessions every Thursday at 8:10 a.m. Central Time and 10:10 a.m. Eastern Time, where we engage with our audience and tackle pressing leadership topics. Listen to our podcast in all major streaming platforms. Are you a humane leader with a unique story? Join the conversation and inspire others. I'm Roberto Torres, a system startup engineering leader, alongside Chris Olerty, a Fortune 100 IT leader. Today, we will be discussing how to decide to leave a job you used to love. Hi, Chris. How about you, man?
Good morning, Roberto. I am no longer working at a job I used to love, so I am in that category, and it can be a very tough decision to make. It's not something you take lightly, especially for me. I worked there 35 years, so it's not easy.
No, it isn't because it was a generation you used to work there.
Absolutely, and there are signs. I think that sometimes they sneak up on you. Sometimes they smack you right in the face. Different things come up when you're making these kind of decisions, but I thought it would be a good idea for us to share kind of both the big corporate and the smaller job perspective of sometimes the leader has to make some tough decisions and leave behind a job that used to be fantastic, maybe has a team that is still fantastic, but you're going to feel like you're abandoning them or abandoning friends. I worked there 35 years. I had both teammates that I liked, but I also had peers and friends in the company. And so it can be a tough decision as a humane leader to say, you know what, for my own personal benefit, it is definitely time to go.
Oh, yeah, because we have spoken in so many podcasts as we humanities helping, nurturing our team members, but it is time today that we spoke about ourselves. Us humanity that we face this situation in our lives. I don't know how many people will face it, but it has been to both of us and probably to many people. And I think that it is really wise to stand up and say, this love that I used to love, it is hurting me in certain ways that I don't feel comfortable anymore, and also that I don't feel propelled to do more things or to do the things that I used to love. Maybe there are certain negative factors. And could you tell us what happened to you that you decide to not to be in the company you used to work for?
Yep. I'll disclose the parts I can. Some of it I'm under
Sure.
non-disclosure, so I can't tell you every detail. But I can tell you that I was impacted by the, COVID layoffs in 2020. And basically, I did have an opportunity. I could have applied for other jobs that were available at the site and to stay. But I chose at that time is, you know what, for me personally, it's time for me to move on to something else. And really, because it was a, hey, HR approaches you and says, we're going to lay you off unless you apply for other jobs, to a degree, the decision was to take no action, right?
Mm.
So part of the decision is, what do? You get faced with this decision. I actually was forced to make a decision, and my decision was to do nothing. But there were things leading up to it. I mean, basically, they start with simple things like can't sleep at night. You on Sunday nights you dread going into the office on Monday morning. So there are big signs like HR says we're going to lay you off, but there are small signs that start off with just the simple, man, I just don't have the excitement to go into the office this Monday. So it's Sunday night and you're like, tomorrow morning I got to get up and go to work. That is the first subtle sign that you're starting to face a problem.
Okay. So instead of saying, yeah, I'm going to work tomorrow, It was the opposite. And how this affected the relationship with your team? It was something that it was visible. It was something that they felt that you changed in somehow.
I would like to believe I put on a strong team humane leader face and was able to mask it so that they didn't see it. None of them thought that I was having much of a problem. Now, my close friends who I worked with there, who are not on my team, they knew but they were also facing similar symptoms, right? Some of them more severe than others. I also started to have even digestive problems where I actually was physically going to the doctor, like something's wrong with me. And really the conclusion was it was work, because literally 3 weeks after being out of the company, all the medical problems went away, all of them. And now that I've spoken with many other people who have left the company, I had one very good friend who was about 10 years older than me that I spoke to after the fact. And he's like, oh yeah, same thing happened to me. Literally 3 months after he left, he was off his high blood pressure medicine. He lost 30 pounds. All these things that, were symptoms that he was in denial about. He was just denying that it was the job when it was really the job. So I think I was able to shelter my team from how I was being treated over the last few years of my career, and did my best to be a humane leader and coach them and help them grow their careers, because many of them moved around in the company over the last few years that were really bad. And so I feel pretty confident that they were still benefiting from my humane leadership. They got promotions, they went on to other roles. But, for myself, it was just kind of one not so great job after another as I moved into different positions over the last 5 years or so, that they just kind of were going downhill.
No. Yeah, well, indeed, stress is something so bad that creates, well, first in your mind and then secondly in your body, some maybe diseases or symptoms that you don't want to face. And doing something about it is so essential. And let me tell you that yesterday I met with my former engineering manager, and he told me that he quit the company a couple of weeks ago because he couldn't withstand all the burnout, all the toxic environment his manager provided, that he couldn't work, that he was protecting his team, but he couldn't make another day to the office, even though it was remote, because he knew that everything he could do was bad in the eyes of his manager, because that was his time. He was not a leader, he was a autocratic boss, and he felt really, really bad until he said, I don't want to face this anymore. And that's why he tweeted. And I think the most difficult decision for a humane leader is to quit and to maybe think that he or she will abandon his teammates, his team. And I think when you mention that, it is the opposite, because if you build a team who has really robust soft skills and knows about humility, they will withstand all these problems, and they will not face maybe some big problems with the new manager or everything. They will survive. I think it is a right word.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you would hope that you had coached them to be prepared for this kind of thing. Now, again, the key thing is, have you invested that well in the team? And if you have, you're more prepared. And I think we've talked about that several times in other episodes about, you may not be planning on leaving the company ever, but the reality is everybody leaves sooner or later. So as
Oh,
long
yeah.
as you're always preparing your team for that next move, whatever comes up, whether it's you win the lottery and you're quitting. Hey, let's have a very positive thing. You win the lottery and you're quitting. That your team is really ready for that. And, our teams where I worked were very used to leadership changes. I mean, for the most part, leadership changes happened about every year and a half to 2 years anyway. So most people are fairly used to a fairly significant turnover and rolling around to different things. So when this happened, my team was well prepared. I think that let me feel more comfortable about doing the non-decision of not applying for other jobs. Because obviously, if I had taken another job in the company, I would have still physically been available to them on a daily basis if they needed to talk, even outside the company. I mean, I still answered some emails after I left. But, I felt that my team, through my preparation, was in good shape, that I could step away, and at least through my action, they were not going to be any worse. The company, whatever they did after I left, I actually don't, have any influence over. And so they had to do their own survival, but hopefully you prepare them for that.
But yeah, that is because you made them not to be dependent of you. You made them independent. I don't know if you created or you nurtured them or you started from scratch or they were above a higher percentage, but in the end, you made it independent because that is what we do. We had to do that. You cannot make a team dependent on you or anyone. They're like independent cell in which they can manage until they have a manager, excuse me, that they will guide that this manager will guide them. Um, okay, and I have another question. Let's say, for instance, that there is today a um, a manager who wants to quit this company and he foresees that he will quit the company in a month. Does this manager will have to train his team? Does he has to say to the last minute, I'm quitting, or should this manager has to prepare the team for the upcoming decision that this manager
Yeah,
has taken?
that's that's a tough question. Now in some countries, there's laws around how much time you need
Mhm.
to warn them and things like that, where it could be months worth of notice. So obviously, in those legal situations, you have to give your notice, and then of course there's a much more driven focus for transition and communicating and preparing people for your exit. In the United States, you could literally quit in one day. And in some situations, a layoff like that I went through, sometimes they tell you, and that's your last minute of work right then. I worked another 3 or 4 weeks, I think. I don't recall exactly the duration, but it was about 3 weeks. So had plenty of time to transition the team, prepare them. That's where I had this time period of considering, do I apply for other jobs that are there, or do I take the severance package and walk away? So you do have some time depending on the situation. If it's totally up to the humane leader, my advice is hopefully you've prepared the team over the years and you just cannot disclose to the team that you're quitting, because the situation could change. Let's suppose that part of the reason that you're getting ready to leave is because the boss and the boss above you are you just can't take them anymore. So you're going to go to a different company. And suddenly the company gets rid of those two bosses. I have a very good friend who is a vice president of the company, and that exact thing happened to him. He was getting ready to leave. He's like, I just cannot take it anymore. I hate Sunday nights. Mondays are just murder. All 5 days are terrible. And he's like, I think I'm going to have to look for another job. And literally, he calls me the next week. He's like, you'll not believe it. The company fired those two people. And so then all of a sudden, his life was significantly better. He's like, he was that close to leaving. And if he had disclosed it, one, the company then doesn't trust him anymore, right? Oh, he was going to leave and abandon us. So, there's this kind of give and take between your team and the company about what you disclose and when. And so if the laws don't dictate it, I would not disclose until you're absolutely gonna leave. Like you've got the letter and you're gonna walk into your boss and hand it to them. That's when they find out. Because things can change so quickly that maybe the bad situation could get reversed. It does happen. I think that preparing your team was part of your question. And again, you in the short term, meaning let's suppose you have to give 1 month's notice to the company that you're quitting. I don't know that in 1 month you're really going to prepare the team that much better for your departure. You really should have been doing it ever since they joined your team. Did they get opportunities to do some of your job? Did they get opportunities to present to leadership? So instead of you presenting, one of your team members presented the materials and the results and the project status, those kinds of things. So really, to me, from your first day as a leader, you're actually preparing to leave. Your first day, you have your exit strategy from the first day you walk in the door. You're starting to get to know the team. Who's going to be my replacement? That decision process begins the first day you join the team.
Well, okay. Thanks. Let me tell you about a startup. Here at a startup, we don't have months, neither ways to do that. I have seen in so many startups that people don't behave as if they were in a well-known company. Let me tell you, I have seen people who have quitted and 2 days later they're not in the company, and I mean management positions. And I have tried to do as much as possible to take at least a week, because it takes me at least a week to create the handover and to tell to someone in my team what's going on, what are the objectives, how we are on the track to reach them, and everything. But the thing about a startup is that most people, and I say most people, don't understand the impact of quitting in a short period of time. And that is a real problem, because suddenly, and I have lived this. I don't know, the CEO of a company told me, Roberto, the CEO is quitting, he's leaving in 3 days, you have to take the job. And I said, wow, okay, give me the data, give me some knowledge. No, this guy doesn't want to, he has did something really slim. You have to jump and take a deep dive into all this and make this area, this department work. So I think it has to be a humane leader has to understand that living in a short notice and with very few days, it will leave stranded the team, and it will leave stranded the people who's going to take your job. So you don't want to have the same situation that I had, and many people should have. But you have to get as much time as possible and to leave as much information as possible. Usually what I do is when I take the decision, the first person that I tell is my manager, and then I go with my team, because you cannot know if someone of your team is going to go directly to your manager and tell, and everything's going to crumble. So instead of that, I will do the right stuff, the right thing to do, and talk to my manager and say, dude, I'm leaving. These are the reasons. And I will, after this meeting, I will tell my team, don't worry, I will make them be ready, and I will provide the information or the handover to someone. Either I choose it or you tell me. And some people say, okay, do it. I trust in you. And others, which are so toxic, they tell, no, you have to give it to me. Regardless of that, I'll do it anyway. And then as he has to be.
Yeah, and those toxic environments is one of the signs that you probably need to move on. I mean, when we're making the decision to go, you do weigh on the impact that you're going to have on your team that you care about, and your friend, if you've been at the company a long time, the friends that don't report to you, but they're your friends at work, and you're going to be leaving them. But if it's a toxic environment and you have those kinds of bosses that are not making your life better, they're making it worse, that's just another one of the signs that this is not the kind of nurturing company that you probably want to work with. And then there's all the other like financial things. I'm sure in the small startups, sometimes money can be tight and you need to keep your ears open and listen for how are the finances doing. If for some reason in one quarter they don't earn enough money, the whole company potentially could stop functioning. In the super huge companies, the quarterly results are the big times to be paying attention. How did the earnings go? If the earnings didn't go well, then there might be layoffs, and you might be told you're going to be going, and it won't be your choice. Or maybe you listen to those earnings calls and you hear things are not going well financially, and so you're like, you know what? I'm 25 years old. My wife just had a baby, and so now I'm very worried about my financial future, and this company doesn't sound like it's doing so well. So I better go to a place that's more secure based on what I'm hearing on earnings. So there can be many different factors in this decision to leave. Sometimes it's, you just dread it. Can't get up in the morning. You have to set an alarm and you keep hitting snooze, and that's not a good sign. That your pit of your stomach, you're sick to your stomach all the time. Not a good sign that you're there. Financial results, small company, big company, are the numbers and the income making sense to you? It doesn't seem like where there's less salespeople now than there were before. That's not a good sign. So there's all these different factors, and obviously for everybody, it is different things that are more important in different points of your life. For me, for the longest time, the financial stability of the company I was in, and because I had been there so long, there were other factors that, having been there so long, were very important to stay there. And at some point, you reach that breaking point of those factors aren't as important as they were before. And you say, you know what, it is just time for me to move on to something else and move on to do something different with your life. And then maybe those upset stomachs, those sleepless nights, somehow all of those things may go away suddenly. And for me, they did. In just a few weeks, all of a sudden, my blood pressure was down, my stomach problems went away, my digestive problems went away, I was sleeping great. Must have been the job.
It was. And let me tell you something about startups. At startups, we have higher salaries than well-known companies. The thing is, well-known companies, you have bonuses, and you have bigger perks that we have. The thing is, we have higher salaries, but we have stock options that we have better options. And the thing is, we don't know if the company is going to reach the numbers and is going to survive and to live. That's why having higher salaries and understand that if we reach this target of users, of growth users, and we reach product market fit, we're going to be a successful startup, and we're going to change maybe to a well-known company, as there are many, Uber, Kavak, etc. Yep. So the difference with that is that it is supposed to have a bigger stress to ourselves because we have to reach those numbers. It doesn't matter if, well, this month we didn't. No, we had to reach those numbers. And that's why and maybe that's another topic for another podcast. it is not everybody is suited to work at a startup because we have a lot of pressure and we have
Yes.
to be so agile and dynamic and recursive of this. But in the end, if any of our audience is wondering, should I be in this company? Make a balance. If more negative traits are heavier than the positive, I think it's time to leave.
Yep.
Great.
No, I would agree. I would agree.
Awesome. Well, I think with this, we could end this episode. Thanks a lot, man.
Very good.
And
We'll see you next week, right?
yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.